Toyota didn't change the 4Runner for 14 years. No new platform, no new engine, no new transmission. Competitors added turbos, giant touchscreens, 10-speed gearboxes. Toyota looked at all of it and didn't move. That wasn't neglect. That was a decision. And that decision sits at the exact center of what takes a vehicle past 300,000 miles. Today, I'm not giving you a list of 10 reliable SUVs. I'm giving you 10 decisions from different manufacturers, different eras, but every single one of them is a different answer to the same question. What actually makes an SUV last? Decision 10. Kill the vibration Subaru Forester. Most engines stand upright. The cylinders fire, the force pushes down, and that energy travels straight into the engine mounts, the chassis, every bolt holding the car together. Subaru looked at that and said, what if the cylinders lay flat instead? The Boxer engine layout puts cylinders on opposite sides, firing toward each other. The forces cancel out. The vibration drops. And when you remove vibration from an engine over 200,000 miles, you remove one of the most consistent sources of long-term mechanical wear. Less vibration, less stress, longer life. Simple physics. The 4th and 5th generation, Forester 2014 onward, also moved to a timing chain setup, which closed the chapter on the head gasket issues that haunted older models. What came out the other side was a no-nonsense daily driver that quietly racks up miles without asking much in return. Subaru's decision wasn't about performance. It wasn't about fuel economy. It was about removing a stress source that most manufacturers just accepted as normal. You can't wear out what you never stress. Decision 9. Make it boring. Honda Pilot. The Honda Pilot's 3.5-liter V6 also goes into the Odyssey minivan and the Ridgeline pickup. It was built by the millions. And every time it was, the same thing happened. A flaw showed up, got identified, got fixed, disappeared from the next production run. But that's not the real story. The real story is this. In daily driving, this engine is barely working. School runs, grocery trips, highway cruising. It's not under stress. It's not being pushed. Think of it like an athlete going for a walk every day. Instead of sprinting, it doesn't wear down. It just keeps going. Engineers call this operating below its limits. When a component is consistently performing well inside its design range, it doesn't accumulate stress the way a maxed-out system does. The Pilot's V6 was designed for far more punishment than suburban driving can throw at it. That decision shows up in ownership costs as one of the lowest repair bills in the class. Your local shop can fix it. You don't need a specialist. Parts are everywhere because millions of them were made. Boring, available, and fixable anywhere. That's not a weakness. That's the entire strategy. Decision 8. Know when to stop. Acura RDX. Acura made a mistake with the 3rd generation RDX. They added a turbocharged 4-cylinder, a more complex transmission, an infotainment system that owners have been consistently frustrated with since launch. The 2nd generation 2013 through 2018 made none of those decisions. It ran Honda's 3.5-liter J-Series V6, one of the most celebrated engines Honda ever built, paired with a 6-speed automatic. Old school, proven, no surprises. The only real maintenance item, timing belt at 100,000 miles. Do that one service, and this engine runs another 100,000 without flinching. The all-wheel drive system was simpler too, not the complex sow-shawed of the newer models. Fewer failure points, cheaper fluid services. Here's the decision Acura made with the 2nd gen. Stop adding things. Every new feature is a new failure point. Every new system is something that eventually needs repair. The engineers who built the 2nd gen RDX knew where the line was, and they stayed behind it. The result is genuine luxury, a refined ride, a quiet cabin, at used car money, with a maintenance bill that won't follow you home. The 2nd gen RDX is one of the best kept secrets in the used market. And the reason it's a secret is that Acura stopped talking about it the moment they replaced it with something more complicated. Decision 7. Leave the formula alone. Honda CR-V. The K24 engine in the 4th generation Honda CR-V is the stuff of legend on mechanic forums. Simple, smooth. It's been around long enough that every technician in America has rebuilt one. Maintenance costs on these average around $47 a year. $47. One dinner out. Honda didn't invent a new engine for the CR-V. They took a formula that worked reliable, simple, over-engineered, relative to daily demands, and they left it alone. Then, they did something even smarter with the hybrid. Honda's two-motor hybrid system ditches the traditional transmission almost entirely. The electric motor connects directly to the wheels. Fewer moving parts means fewer things that can go wrong. Regenerative braking means your brake pads can last 100,000 miles instead of 40,000. The decision wasn't to innovate. The decision was to remove complexity wherever they could find it and replace it with nothing. CR-V owners don't sell their cars. You'll find forums full of people at 220, 250,000 miles asking, should I finally trade it in? The answer they keep getting and accepting is no. Just keep driving it. Decision 6. Say no. Mazda CX-5. In 2012, everyone was moving to CVTs. It made sense on paper. Smoother, more efficient, modern. Nissan did it. Subaru did it. Honda did it in several models. Mazda's engineers looked at the trend, looked at each other, and said no. A CVT runs on a belt. The belt wears. The belt gets replaced. Replacement is expensive. Expensive repairs mean frustrated owners mean the car gets sold before it should. Mazda stayed with a traditional 6-speed torque converter automatic. Old technology, old logic. But they understood one formula. Fewer moving parts means fewer things that can go wrong. They applied the same thinking to the engine. Instead of chasing fuel economy by shrinking the engine and bolting on a turbo, they built a naturally aspirated 2.5-liter with a high compression ratio and an exhaust setup that gets efficiency without the heat stress of forced induction. The interior looks and feels like something that costs 10 grand more. Owners compare it to entry-level Audi or BMW, but with Japanese reliability and a maintenance bill that averages $400 to $500 a year. That's Corolla money for an SUV that drives like a sports car. One word in an engineering meeting in 2012: no. Decision 5. Share everything. Toyota Highlander. Toyota's approach with the Highlander was almost counterintuitive. Instead of developing unique components for a unique vehicle, they shared everything: engines, transmissions, suspension with the Lexus RX, and the Toyota Sienna minivan. When you're producing components at that scale, across that many vehicles, defects don't hide for long. They show up fast. They get fixed faster. By the time you're buying a Highlander, you're buying a powertrain that has been stress-tested by millions of owners across millions of miles. The hybrid version takes this further. Toyota's eCVT sounds like a CVT, but isn't. It's a planetary gear set. No belts, no bands, no clutches, just gears. Toyota has been running this same basic system since the original Prius. Some Highlander hybrid owners are reporting 300,000 miles on the original hybrid battery and eCVT. Not a typo. 300,000 miles. While getting 36 miles per gallon hauling a family of 7, the decision was to never build something in isolation. Share the component. Scale the production. Let millions of miles across thousands of owners find every flaw, then fix it. By the time it reaches you, it's already been solved. Decision 4. Choose boring over prestigious. Lexus RX. At 100,000 miles, a BMW X5 starts sending you bills, air suspension failures, electronic gremlins, specialized brake components that only one shop in your city knows how to source. The prestige of the badge comes with a maintenance invoice that matches it. Lexus made a different decision. The RX 350's 3.5-liter V6 has been in production long enough that every potential weakness has been identified and fixed. By the time you're buying one, you're buying a powertrain that's been stress-tested by millions of owners across millions of miles. At 100,000 miles, the RX typically just needs tires and fluid changes. The cabin materials hold up, the ride stays smooth, the repair bills stay small. Owners describe it as a vehicle that just works, and they hold on to them because of it. It's not uncommon to see RX models from the early 2000s still in daily service, original engines, original transmissions, no major work done. The decision Lexus made was to not compete on prestige engineering, compete on durability. Let the Germans chase complexity. Stay simple, stay reliable, stay fixable. The vehicle that never breaks down isn't always the most impressive one in the parking lot. It's just the one still running when everything else has been traded in. Decision 3. Overbuild it. Toyota Sequoia. The second-generation Toyota Sequoia 2008 through 2022 is built on the Tundra pickup truck platform. The axles, the frame, the cooling system, all of it was engineered for serious heavy-duty work. And when you use a truck-grade platform primarily as a family hauler, those components are barely breaking a sweat for most of their lives. The 5.7-liter V8 under the hood Toyota's 3UR FE has a reputation that borders on mythological. Tundra owners have taken this engine past 1 million miles. Not 100,000, 1 million. Toyota built it with an oversized cooling system and internal components that are simply heavier and more robust than they need to be. That's the decision. Overbuild it. Build it for more than it will ever be asked to do. Then, watch what happens when people only ever ask it to do less. According to IC Cars, about 39.1% of second-generation Sequoias make it past 250,000 miles. That's roughly 8 times higher than the average vehicle reaching 250,000 miles. 8 times. The engineers didn't build a family hauler. They built a truck and put seats in it. And the people who bought it to haul families never came close to the limits those engineers were designing around. That gap between what it's built for and what it's asked to do is exactly where longevity lives. Decision 2. Hide it. Lexus GX 460. The Lexus GX 460 looks like a country club vehicle. Leather seats, wood trim, Lexus badge. The valet smiles when he takes the keys, but underneath that, something else entirely. This is a global Land Cruiser Prado, the same platform that international aid agencies use in conflict zones. The same bones that military contractors trust in environments where breaking down means you're stranded for days. Toyota didn't build this for American suburbs. They built it for roads where failure isn't an inconvenience, it's a crisis. Then they put a Lexus badge on it and sent it to Houston. The 4.6-liter V8 went largely unchanged across the entire generation. Same powertrain, year after year, until every possible failure point had been found and fixed. No electronic air suspension instead, a hydraulic system called KDSS. No sensors, no software updates, no modules that fail at 90,000 miles. Just hydraulics, doing their job quietly. Fewer electronics, fewer failures. Used car buyers have caught on. People call the GX 460 the ultimate used car value because you're getting Land Cruiser bones with Lexus refinement at a fraction of what a comparable German luxury SUV would cost to maintain. The decision was to never tell anyone what it really was. They were buying a Lexus. They were getting a Land Cruiser. Decision 1. Don't change it. Toyota 4Runner. It launched in 2010. It was still in production in 2024, nearly identical. In that time, competitors added turbo engines, 10-speed transmissions, massive touchscreens, new platforms, new names, new marketing campaigns every 3 years. Toyota didn't touch the 4Runner. The 4-liter V6 runs a timing chain, not a belt. No replacement interval, no $1,200 surprise at 90,000 miles. The 5-speed automatic is considered over-engineered for the vehicle's weight. The climate controls are physical knobs and buttons. Still there, still working, still simple. No giant tablet that costs $3,000 to replace when the software eventually dies. Body-on-frame construction. A truck, not a car dressed as one. It handles off-road abuse, high-mileage stress, and daily punishment without developing the structural rattles and suspension fatigue you see in unibody crossovers. Mechanics call it boring. In the reliability world, boring is the highest compliment you can give. Boring means, we've seen this before, we know exactly what it is, the fix is simple, the parts are cheap, the owner goes home happy. Not changing something for 14 years isn't laziness. Finding what works and then leaving it alone, that's the hardest engineering decision there is. Honorable mention, know your enemy, GM full-size trio. The Chevrolet Tahoe, GMC Yukon, and Chevrolet Suburban didn't make the main list, but ignoring them means ignoring some of the most durable full-size vehicles ever built in America. The LS-based V8 is a pushrod design, one camshaft buried in the block instead of two sitting on top. fewer moving parts. Many of the 5.3-liter variants use a cast iron block, not aluminum. Cast iron handles heat and high mileage better. These engines were built tough from the ground up. The catch: the cylinder deactivation system AFM can cause lifter failures if you're not on top of your oil changes. But here's the thing about that catch: it's not a design failure. It's an owner decision. An AFM disabler is a plug-in device. It keeps the engine in V8 mode all the time and eliminates the issue entirely. Add a transmission cooler. Stay on top of your maintenance. Do those things, and these trucks will genuinely run forever. Parts are everywhere. Every mechanic in the country knows how to work on one. When something eventually does go wrong, you're not paying dealership prices for specialty components. The GM Trio taught us the 10th decision. The manufacturer builds the foundation, but the owner decides whether it lasts. So, back to the question: is it engineering or maintenance that takes an SUV to 300,000 miles? Every vehicle on this list points to the same answer. Engineering builds the foundation. Maintenance protects it. But look at what every decision here had in common. None of them chased complexity. Killing vibration was a decision. Operating below the limits was a decision. Saying no to CVTs was a decision. Hiding Land Cruiser bones under a Lexus badge was a decision. Not changing anything for 14 years was a decision. Every single one of them said the same thing: fewer moving parts, fewer things that can go wrong. Find the manufacturer that understood that formula. Buy their vehicle. Change the oil. The rest is math.